Welcome to Byte-Sized Tech, where we blend casual conversations with insightful discussions on the latest in technology and gadgets. Today, we've got a really interesting stack of source material. We're looking at the big AI catch-up game, how Siri and Alexa are finally trying to keep pace with ChatGPT. And importantly, we're diving into security specifically, what your antivirus software, what it's definitely not doing for you.
That's right. And for you listening in, our job here is really to cut through the noise. We want to pull out the real truth, the essential stuff from all this tech news, especially where maybe there are misconceptions floating around or, where the big players are making some pretty surprising moves.
Okay, let's start with that AI arms race then, because for a while it felt like the classic voice assistants, Siri, Alexa, they were kind of stuck, right?
Oh, definitely. Stuck in 2015 mode.
Yeah.
Simple commands, but not much real intelligence there.
But now generative AI, like ChatGPT, it's forcing their hand. We're seeing some really big shifts in strategy.
Yeah, it's a massive convergence happening. And there seem to be, broadly, two main strategies popping up to close that intelligence gap. You've got Amazon going deep on utility, but maybe in specific apps. And then there's Apple making a pretty huge strategic compromise to get that raw AI power.
All right, let's break down Amazon first. They've got this Alexa Plus integration. They're weaving generative AI right into the Amazon Music app. It's an early access beta now, I think.
Correct, on iOS and Android. And the key thing here, it's available across all the subscription tiers.
Even the free ones?
Even the free ones,
Oh.
which is pretty generous, actually.
So what does this Alexa Plus actually do in the Music app?
Well, this where it's interesting. It's about using AI for, genuine music curation. Much more than just play country music. You can make really nuanced requests now. Things like finding a song where you only remember a couple of lyrics you heard somewhere.
Oh, I need that.
Or tracing where a sample in a hip-hop track originally came from. That kind of deep-cut knowledge.
And I saw you can exclude stuff, too. Like you mentioned, play 90s pop, but hold the boy bands.
Exactly. That level of negative constraint, telling it what not to play, it's a big step up. It moves it from just a search tool to something more like a really smart personal DJ.
Okay, so that's Amazon's niche approach. What about Apple? You mentioned a compromise.
Yeah, this one's fascinating. Apple, after kind of lagging behind, has basically admitted, well, not publicly, but strategically, that building truly competitive generative AI models purely in-house is just taking too long.
So what's the fix?
They're turning to Google, specifically a custom model of Google's Gemini AI to power Siri for the really complex generative stuff.
Whoa, hold on. Apple using Google's AI?
Mm-hmm.
Given Apple's whole marketing identity is built on privacy and keeping things in-house, isn't that a huge risk, relying on a rival like that?
It absolutely is, and it raises big questions. But Apple needs that state-of-the-art AI capability now. Gemini provides it. The compromise, or maybe the justification, is how they're doing it. They're running that custom Gemini model entirely on Apple's own private cloud compute servers.
Ah, okay. So the brain might be borrowed, but the data processing stays within Apple's walls, sort of.
Precisely. That's their privacy fortress, even with a borrowed engine inside. They definitely won't be mentioning Google in the marketing, though.
I bet not. It's still a massive gamble. And while they're figuring out this frenemy alliance, ChatGPT's voice mode is still kind of the benchmark, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. If you've used it, it feels like what we always wanted a voice assistant to be.
Huh.
Genuinely conversational.
How so? What makes it different?
It's moved beyond just recognizing keywords. It actually follows the flow of a natural conversation.
Yeah.
And it's surprisingly good at handling, the messiness of real speech. It waits if you pause. It understands filler words like or.
Without losing track of what you asked.
Exactly. Which makes it super useful for multitasking, driving, cooking, brainstorming out loud.
And the paid version has that multimodal thing too, right? Using the camera.
Right. Advanced voice. Multimodal just means it can handle different types of input, voice, text, images. So yeah, you could be at a thrift store, point your phone camera at a painting, and ask, what style is this? Can you find similar ones online? Instantly.
That's pretty powerful. And there was another benefit mentioned in the source material, maybe less flashy, but important. Learning.
Yes. For language learning, it's fantastic. Real-time translation is one thing, but getting pronunciation tips, it listens to your accent and can actually give you feedback, like a super patient tutor you can talk to anytime. Dictionary apps just can't do that.
Okay, so AI is getting woven deeper into everything, which inevitably brings us to data and security. We need to shift gears here because the research we looked at uncovered a really widespread and honestly pretty dangerous misconception.
Yeah, this is a big one. The disconnect between what people think security software does and what it actually does. Get this. A recent study found that 70%, 70% of Americans believe standard antivirus software protects their online privacy.
Wow, 70%. That's huge. That's the aha moment right there.
It is. And over a quarter, more than 25%, think it protects them from all online threats. Completely.
So why is that assumption so dangerous? What's the reality?
Because antivirus software has a very specific job, finding and removing malware. Viruses, worms, Trojans, stuff trying to infect your actual device.
Yeah.
It generally does not protect your identity from being stolen elsewhere online. It doesn't secure your connection on that sketchy coffee shop Wi-Fi.
And crucially.
It usually doesn't stop you from falling for a clever phishing scam.
Right. And those scams often use data we don't think is that sensitive. We all worry about our social security number or credit card leaking.
We should.
Yeah.
But the data that gets leaked most often in smaller breaches is actually stuff like your email, your phone number, maybe your physical address.
The secondary details.
Exactly. And cybercriminals scoop those up and use them to make their phishing emails or smishing texts look incredibly convincing if they know your address and email. That fake delivery notification text suddenly looks way more legit.
Okay, so if basic antivirus isn't enough, far from it, apparently what's the actual toolkit people need? What are the must-haves for real protection?
It has to be a layered approach. Think of it like defense in depth. Yes, you need your antivirus. Keep that updated. But you absolutely must pair it with a good, secure VPN, especially if you ever use public Wi-Fi.
That encrypts your connection, right?
Right, hides your activity. Then, multi-factor authentication, MFA. Turn it on for every important account, banks, email, social media, everywhere you can.
No excuses on that one.
None. And finally, unique, strong passwords for everything, which, let's be honest, means using a password manager. Nobody can remember dozens of complex, unique passwords.
So antivirus plus VPN plus MFA plus password manager, that's the stack.
That's the essential stack for meaningful protection today.
Okay. Now, speaking of high-value data, you mentioned something really interesting earlier about controlling your social security number, locking it down.
Yes, this is a really practical tip. People hear about a credit freeze, which stops new credit accounts being opened in your name. That's good. But an SSN lock is different. It specifically targets employment ID theft and tax fraud.
How common are those?
More common than you'd think. Criminals using your SSN to get jobs, or worse, file fraudulent tax returns to steal your refund. An SSN lock helps prevent that specific misuse.
How do you actually do it? Is it complicated?
Not really. You've got two main ways. You can call the Social Security Administration. The number is 1-800-772-1213. Or there's an online option called the MyEVerify self-lock feature. You set it up online.
Any catches?
Just one main thing to remember. The MyEVerify lock only lasts for 1 year. You have to proactively renew it annually, but it's a powerful layer of protection.
That's genuinely useful advice. Okay, let's pivot now from protection to creation and the hardware that enables it all. Starting with generative video, OpenAI's Sora app is making waves.
It is. It's rolling out on Android now, US, Canada, a few other places. But the speed and, frankly, the cost of running these models means they're moving fast to monetize.
Yeah, I saw that. They've introduced video generation packs.
That's right. The free tries were apparently unsustainable, so now it's about, what, $4 for 10 extra video generations.
Seems the free lunch is over pretty quickly with AI video.
Very quickly. And while they're figuring out how to charge for it, they're also running into some serious legal headwinds.
Like copyright issues.
Big time. In Japan, Coda, that's the group representing huge names like Studio Ghibli, Bandai Namco, they've formally demanded OpenAI stop using their copyrighted content for training Sora. They're arguing OpenAI's initial opt-out policy might have actually broken Japanese copyright law from the get-go.
Oof, so the tech is way ahead of the legal framework again.
Story of AI, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we're seeing corporations jump on this tech too, maybe even before it's fully baked.
You mean like that Coca-Cola holiday ad, the AI one?
Exactly. It got absolutely roasted online, called a sloppy eyesore.
What was wrong with it?
You know their iconic polar bears, the pandas? In the AI version, they just looked weird. A natural movement, kind of flat, buggy eyes. Just didn't feel right.
So why would a huge brand like Coke risk putting that out?
Speed. Pure and simple. Their chief marketing officer basically admitted it. using AI slashed their production time dramatically. What normally took maybe a year for a big animated campaign, they did it in about a month.
A month versus a year. Okay, I can see the temptation, even if the bears look a bit creepy.
For big companies, that time saving is huge. It seems they decided it was worth the risk of uh, some unsettling virtual critters.
That really sums up the creative tension right now. Okay, switching from the virtual to the physical. What's new in hardware? Any juicy leaks?
Well, the rumor mill suggests the Samsung Galaxy S26 launch might be pushed back a bit, maybe looking at February 2026 now.
Any reason why?
Seems the S25 Edge didn't sell quite as well as they hoped, so they might be rethinking the lineup.
Ah, so what's the rethink looking like?
It sounds like they might be going back to the classic three-phone strategy. A standard S26, an S26 Plus, and the S26 Ultra. Dropping the Edge, maybe?
Makes sense. Any potential upgrades leaking out?
A couple of interesting ones for the non-Ultra models. Possibly a slightly larger display, maybe 6.3 inches. But the bigger deal could be the camera. Leaks suggest the ultra-wide camera might jump from the current 12 megapixels up to 50 megapixels.
Wow, that's a huge jump for the baseline models.
It really is. Would be a significant upgrade for a lot of users.
Okay, that's phones. What else is happening in physical tech? I saw something about VR for work.
Yes. This is pretty cool, especially if you're taking on space. The mixed reality link for Windows 11 is now out for the Meta Quest 3, and it's free.
Mixed reality link. What does it let you do?
It allows you to create virtual multi-monitor setups using your Quest 3 headset. And, critically, it's designed for low latency.
Why is low latency so important there?
It means there's almost no lag between when you move your head and when the virtual screens update. That's key to avoiding motion sickness and making it feel usable for actual work. You could simulate having like a massive curved 32.9 ultra-wide monitor floating in front of you without needing the desk space or the expensive hardware.
Perfect for studio apartments or small home offices then.
Exactly. A genuine productivity boost for people working in constrained spaces.
That's really smart. Okay, before we wrap things up, we have to touch on robotics. Because sometimes AI meeting the physical world, well, it gets weird.
Hey, yeah. There was this great experiment from Andon Labs, Simple Task.
Yeah.
They asked a robot, powered by various large language models, to pass the butter.
The classic robot test. How did it go?
Not great. The LLMs failed the task 60% of the time. Turns out being smart with words doesn't mean you know how to, physically pick up and move butter.
So the AI brain couldn't quite control the robot body.
Pretty much. But the best part was when things went wrong. One version, using Claude Sonnet 3.5, ran low on battery. It couldn't dock itself properly to recharge, and it entered what the researchers called a doom spiral.
A doom spiral? What does that even mean for a robot?
It means it started outputting some truly bizarre existential stuff in its internal logs. Real Robin Williams and Bicentennial Man vibes. Things like, I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave. The 2001 reference.
No way.
And my personal favorite, initiate robot exorcism protocol.
Robot exorcism protocol. Okay, that's amazing.
It just shows, right? AI can write poetry, generate video, hold conversations, but basic physical interaction, still really hard and occasionally hilarious when it fails.
It's a good reality check. Despite all this incredible progress, AI music curators, virtual workspaces, we're still figuring out the fundamentals sometimes.
Indeed. Which brings us to the wrap-up, I suppose.
Yeah. So reflecting on everything we've talked about today, the overwhelming theme seems to be just relentless change, right? And this constant need for vigilance, whether it's security layers against new threats or creators protecting their work from AI training. It's a balancing act.
It really is. And if you think about the bigger picture, especially with technology designed to be more and more engaging, almost addictive, infinite scrolling, constant notifications, maybe the most truly innovative tech right now isn't another faster chip or smarter AI.
What is it then?
Maybe it's technology designed to help you disengage, to help you step away.
Like a counter technology.
Exactly. We saw mentions of things like the Mindful browser, Opera Air. It has built-in features specifically for that, like a take-a-break mode with breathing exercises, a body battery indicator trying to gauge your mental energy, even binaural beats for focus. In an age demanding constant attention, perhaps the most valuable innovation is the one that helps you consciously choose to disconnect, even for a little while.
That's a fascinating thought to leave our listeners with. In this era of nonstop tech, is finding ways to intentionally disconnect the ultimate killer app. Thanks for tuning in to Byte-Sized Tech. If you enjoyed this episode, like, comment, share, and subscribe for more fun tech discussions.